Hi everyone, my name is Vishal. I'm coming up with the second part of our series where we are trying to decode various terminologies, various aspects of startup ecosystem. How do we learn about how do we understand a business? Okay, that is the main idea. Like I mentioned, this year I would like to give my knowledge, whatever I've learned, whatever I'm learning with the the peers who definitely wants to learn about. The startup ecosystem space, right? And make themselves a very good, knowledgeable person. So that is the idea. So we'll continue the series here. I would like to share. I'll share my screen first of all. Uh, if you remember, we have touched upon few aspects about the P&L statement earlier, जहाँ पे हमने बहुत minutely बहुत सारी चीजों को cover किया था. We covered about gross revenue. We covered about the gross margin, contribution margin. Contribution margin was the thing where we stopped our discussion there. So quick recap again, very quickly. Gross revenue हमने समझा कि कोई प्रोडक्ट को हम कितने कितने यूनिट को हम कितने बेस प्राइस में बेचेंगे, जो हमारे पास पैसा आता है उसे ग्रॉस रेवेन्यू बोलते हैं. वेरी सिंपल, ठीक है. उसमें से अगर हम डिस्काउंट वगैरह माइनस करते हैं तो हमें नेट रेवेन्यू मिलता है. नेट रेवेन्यू से डायरेक्ट एक्सपेंसेस, जो भी चीज को बनाने के लिए, अगर एक पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट को बनाने के लिए जो एक्सपेंस ओकर होते हैं उसको डायरेक्ट एक्सपेंस बोलते हैं. नेट रेवेन्यू से अगर हम डायरेक्ट एक्सपेंस को हटाते हैं तो ग्रॉस मार्जिन मिलता है. If you are subtracting the marketing, sales, and any variable expenses from the gross margin, you get contribution margin, also known as CM2 in many cases, right? That is where we stop. Now there's a concept of EBITDA. Why EBITDA is important here? I've seen people talking about EBITDA. When I started my journey in this ecosystem, I saw people are talking about EBITDA. For me at that time it was just a numerical, it was just a parameter, a baseline parameter. But EBITDA is, it's important. Why it is important, that we need to understand. Now if I remove from the contribution margin, if I remove the fixed cost, I get something known as EBITDA. This is a very simple mathematics, right? But we have to go beyond that. Like, we want to understand what exactly this EBITDA is, right? Now if I say, if you may have a question like, what is so crazy thing about this EBITDA? Why do people talk about it? Now, if you see my screen, you see, first of all, we have to understand like what fixed costs are. Any costs which are not variable in nature. That is how I remember, fixed costs, right? Any cost which is not variable in nature is known as fixed cost. We say employee benefit expenses हो गया, general administration expenses हो गया, right? The office rent, the utility, supplies, IT expenses related to maintaining your IT infrastructure, anything that those sort of a cost is known as fixed cost. If I remove fixed cost from my contribution margin, I'll get something known as EBITDA. As simple as that. That's a very plain definition of EBITDA, right? Now, if I want to go, if I want to become a knowledgeable person, if I want to go one step ahead, I will get in depth of why EBITDA is important. Now, first of all, what is the full form of EBITDA? Earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. That is definition. But if you are a smart reader, you will go two steps ahead from this definition here. Now, I'll take a case. Now, we have started our journey by taking jam companies as example, jam production as example, right? Now, I'll try to bring the importance of EBITDA by taking two jam companies, say Jam A and Jam B. ठीक है. Now very quick notes. Depreciation is a non cash expense. आप अपना पैसा निकालते नहीं हो, पैसा मतलब डालते भी नहीं हो या पैसा देते नहीं हो डेप्रिसिएशन करने के लिए, ठीक है. वो नॉन कैश एक्सपेंसेस है. वो डेप्रिसिएशन, आपका जो प्रोडक्ट डेप्रिशिएट होता है वो एक नॉन कैश एक्सपेंस है. तो EBITDA इट रिप्रेजेंट्स अ कैश, इज अ कैश ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट. जो भी चीज हम EBITDA तक आने के लिए हमने यूज किया था, EBITDA के उस पर्टिकुलर फॉर्मूला तक पहुंचने के लिए यूज किया था, यू सी इट्स अ कैश ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट ओनली. वेरी सिंपल. सब में कैश इन्वॉल्व था. बट इनकम टैक्सेशन जो एबिटा के बाद आता है, डेप्रिसिएशन, एक नॉन कैश एक्सपेंस है. इट माइट बी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड टू अंडरस्टैंड हियर, बट हमें समझने के लिए इतना समझना है कि EBITDA is something, it's a parameter or it's a metric which shows how strong a business is at core, right? Without the noise of financing, taxation, accounts वगैरह. क्यों ऐसा है हम समझते हैं. Now I'll take two examples of a jam company and jam A and jam B. Now, jam A company has bought a machine, say 10 years before. Jam B company has bought a machine for 5 years before. Now, it's a very simple common sense. The machine bought 10 years before might have the cost of that machine will be less as compared to the machine bought 5 years before. ठीक है, अगर 10 लाख रुपए लगाता हो, अभी 15 लाख रुपए होगा उस मशीन का, राइट? वो चीज हमें बस वो एक बेसिक समझना है, उसके बाद हम विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट रियली वेल. Okay, if I see, um, now depreciation, if I want to go in depth in the accounting principles वगैरह, depreciation को हम जैसे 10 लाख का आपने मशीन लिया, आप 10 लाख बुक्स में नहीं डालते हो. अगर उस मशीन का 5 लाख का, सॉरी, 5 years का लाइफ साइकिल है, you'll put 2 years in year one. So 2 years in year one, year two you'll put 2 years, two करके 5 years में आप 10 लाख भरते हो उस चीज का डेप्रिसिएशन का. You do not put it like 10 lakhs in one go, right? Because उसका लाइफ साइकिल 5 years का है, और आप उसमें 2 lakhs करके आप उसको अकाउंटिंग में दिखाते हो. बिकॉज दैट मशीन इज एन एसेट फॉर यू, इट्स नॉट अ लायबिलिटी. क्योंकि उस मशीन के थ्रू आप जैम प्रोड्यूस करते हो, राइट? इट्स अ एसेट. तो वो एक एसेट है, ठीक है. दो हमें समझना है, ये चीजें समझना है, देन अदर थिंग्स बिकम्स मच मोर इजियर. Now, if I see why EBITDA is a good parameter, or I would say good metric, not a parameter, but a good metric here. I've taken two ventures, Jam A and Jam B. Jam A has a manufacturing, also manufactures jam. Jam B also manufactures jam. 100 CR दोनों का रेवेन्यू है. मशीन कॉस्ट एक का 5 लाख है, एक का मशीन कॉस्ट जो है 10 लाख है. ठीक है, अब ये समझना, क्योंकि द ईयर द मशीन्स were bought were different. ठीक है, that is the only difference here, because Jam P it's I started their business थोड़ा जल्द recently as compared to Jam A, right? The machine costs in both the cases are different. Now, machine life cycle, I'm assuming it's 5 years for both the cases. Now, if I divide the machine cost with machine life, I'll get annual depreciation amount. कि per year मेरा depreciation कितना होगा? So it's one, it's a very simple simple mathematics. That 5 lakhs divided by 5 years will give me an annual depreciation of 1 lakh, and 10 lakh divided by the 5 lakh of 5 years of machine life will give me 2 lakh of annual depreciation. Now in my book I'll put it as 1 lakh and 2 lakh only, other than putting it as 5 lakh and 10 lakh respectively, right? यहाँ तक चीजें it's clear. Now if I go to the depreciation thing, now depreciation for me here it is 1 lakh and it is 2 lakh. If I convert it into crores, it's like 0.01 CR and it is 0.02 CR. Now if I subtract here, I'll get a EBIT, that is the operating profit, because D is getting cancelled over here. D and A is getting cancelled over here. I'll get EBIT, that is around 99.9 CR, it is 99.98 CR. Now if you see, both the companies are doing good revenue, almost same revenue, but the operating profit is different. Does that mean that Jam A is better than Jam B? No, it doesn't mean that Jam A's business is solid as compared to Jam B. No, it doesn't give a sense. It is just because the machine that I have bought, of course, depends on various factors. It's a very simple example I'm taking. Just because the machine that I bought was in the higher value, that doesn't mean that I'm doing a bad business. That doesn't mean, right? So hence, EBITDA is a good, metric to be compared. Now, if I go one step ahead, if I take interest for example, अगर मैं इंटरेस्ट यहाँ से हटा रहा हूँ, both 110 CR interest, दोनों में 10 CR interest, again you would see A doing better than B. But no, again, this is not a good parameter to compare two businesses. It is not a good parameter. Now, if I go one more step ahead, if I remove tax also, now if you set up your plant, अगर आप अपने प्लांट को कोई रिमोटेस्ट पार्ट ऑफ द कंट्री में सेट कर रहे हो, देयर इज टैक्स बेनिफिट. अगर आप पोल्यूशन ज्यादा कर रहे हो तो आपको ज्यादा टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा. बट अगेन टैक्स, क्योंकि आपने कोई रिमोट पार्ट में अपना बिजनेस को सेट किया है, डज दैट मीन योर बिजनेस इज गुड? नो, डजंट मीन दैट योर बिजनेस इज गुड, राइट? Is it might be good, and it's a wrong statement to say. Of course it might, the business is good, of course, is from a CSR point of view you're doing good, but दोनों का comparison में you cannot say that the Jam is doing a great business as compared to Jam B. No, we cannot make that conclusion. Hence, EBITDA doesn't make, like, if you remember the earlier statement that I've told, it removes the noises of financing, taxes, or accounting choices. And Taraju, that the balances two businesses purely on the basis of the business that they're doing. Right? So that is why the EBITDA is a good parameter to be, or good metric, like a parameter is a wrong term, good metric to be compared upon. Now, if you see one more parameter thing, when you're analyzing a business, understand what is the debt to equity ratio of the money they are putting into the business. Now, Jam A, if you see, they have put 100 CR money. Jam B has put as 100 CR money. Both have the same amount of money. The debt in the case of Jam A was 40 CR. Equity was around 60 CR. Jam B has a debt of 60 CR and equity is 40 CR. It's a reversal case where debt to equity ratio is different for both the businesses. एक ने ज्यादा डेट उठाया, एक ने कम डेट उठाया, right? Now should I come to a conclusion कि जिसने ज्यादा डेट उठाया है उसका बिजनेस शायद अच्छा या बुरा होगा? Can I do a comparison? No, I cannot do a comparison. Now, if you see the another column over here, Jam A and Jam B, the net income, of course, that you will be getting after subtracting the taxation, net income of Jam A is larger, but Jam B is lower. But equity is 60 CR, equity is 40 CR. Now, if I divide the higher by the larger equity, the ROE, the return on equity, is lower for Jam A, but return on equity on Jam B is higher. What does the statement mean? कि अपना पैसा कम लगा के अगर मैं ज्यादा प्रॉफिट कर रहा हूँ, if I'm able to do larger profit, it's good ना. So return on equity is a good parameter or a good metric. It's like I mentioned in the statement also, it's a critical profitability metric that measures how effectively the management uses this investors' capital to generate profit. Right? So if you see, if what I've seen, if I made a conclusion that taking more debt and doing a business has been bad, will be bad, then I'm doing a wrong comparison over here. Now I'm going a one step ahead and understanding the return on equity wala thing also, right? So this is how you, when you're reading a business, when you're reading about EBITDA, you should keep all these things in mind, so they can do a good research about the businesses, right? You can ask better questions. If you are someone in startup ecosystem, you can ask better questions also. How much money you have put and how much profit you are generating. If you're putting less money and generating profit, more profit, nothing better than that. Now, I'll go one step ahead and explain about a profitability frame. We have covered mostly everything in the P&L statement. The things that we need to do. Of course, if you remove the tax, depreciation, everything from EBITDA, you get net profit, right? And net profit is, of course, it doesn't mean that you should not look after net profit. Of course, you should look after net profit also. That's a separate topic to be altogether, because ऐसा नहीं कि अगर net profit ही बहुत ही कम है तो कुछ फायदा नहीं है बाकी चीजों को देख के. But if you're comparing two businesses which are very close to close, neck to neck, no, I think EBITDA is a good metric to be used for comparison. Now, profitability framework, I'll not give much gyan over here. See, it's a metric. Its profitability depends upon two things, as plain as simple. It depends upon your revenue and cost. Okay, very simple, boss. Revenue और cost के ऊपर depend करता है. Now, if I do a top-down, breakdown, like profit is a metric of revenue and cost, and if I see a article, now I'm capable enough of reading a newspaper article on business. Right? This is an economic time business from August 2025, if I'm not wrong. I read a headline: KFC and Pizza Hut operator Devyani's profit plunges 88% as ad spend jumps. Okay, two things. One is the profit is getting lower and the ad spend is getting higher. Okay. So now I know profitability depends upon revenue and cost. For Devyani, the cost must be, of course, the rent, cost of goods for making the Devyani has Pizza Hut वगैरह is there, under them. So उसमें cost लगता है बनाने के लिए, salaries वगैरह. This is just an overall thing I'm thinking as the cost. Revenue, of course, the products that they're selling might be a revenue, right? This is something that I'm thinking. This I have a basic idea. Now I'm coming and reading the article. Okay, I made a mindset. Now I'm reading an article. Now one paragraph says revenue from the operation rose 11.1% year on year to 13.57 billion rupees, benefiting from a restaurant count that was higher by over 300 year on year, including the addition of recently acquired biryani by kilo. Now I know there's an acquisition that has been made, and that is the reason the revenue has gone higher. Okay? But if you are a good smart reader, you will compare the previous year's revenue also, and you will see the revenue percentage has not gone higher, not gone much higher as compared to the previous years. 11%, yes, there's an increase in revenue, but is it that great? No. Even after acquiring a business, no. If you're acquiring my business, if there is a cost involved, yes, there's a cost involved. Now, if you're putting money, 100 rupees, suppose earlier you are making 110 rupees by spending 100 rupees. So there's a 10 rupees ka profit. Okay? Now 100 rupees has been spent. Again, you have to spend 100 rupees, but you're buying a business for 5 rupees also. So 105 rupees. But even after that, if you're generating 110 rupees, doesn't make sense. You're making, if you're making say 111 rupees, doesn't make sense. क्योंकि आपने इतना acquire भी कर लिया और तब भी इतना कम revenue कर रहे हो, doesn't make sense, right? You have to think from that aspect also. Even from the acquisition, if the company is not making that much revenue, it's a red flag. Okay. This is how the article is that when you're reading something, you should understand that you should ask questions to yourself, right? Ask questions to yourself. Ki, if you do not have the concept now, you would read this, okay, 11.1% great. But I don't have a metric to compare. And then I'll do a bit of research and then I'll come to a conclusion. No, it's not that great. You have acquired a business and you're still making a lower revenue, not that great. So for me, the conclusion was the growth was driven mainly by the new outlets and acquisition, not improved performance at existing outlets. Now, for any QSR business, there is a concept known as same store growth. If you were able to make more revenues from the existing store, suppose if you're making 200 rupees from one store, if you're able to make 500 rupees from the same store, then the story would have been different. The same, now you have to ask the question, the acquisition is made. Now, whether these same stores which earlier Devyani had, how much revenue have they made? How much revenue the same stores have made? Now, going in depth, you'll do the Google. You'll do Google. You'll get articles whether they have made the revenue or not. Because वहां पे फिर cost involved नहीं होते. यहाँ पे आप एक cost involve कर रहे हो. You're putting a cost. You're acquiring a business, and then you are sort of not getting that revenue. It's not a great parameter at all, right? So this type of expansion revenue is lower quality than the organic same store growth. Okay. Sluggish demand means new restaurants are not making up for weaker performance in the mature unit. Even if you acquired a new unit and it is not able to cover the revenue that has been not made by the existing unit, then the acquisition might not be a good investment. I don't know. This is an assumption that I'm making, interpretation that I'm making. Then there's this our responsibility to dig deeper and understand the businesses nicely. Now we'll see on the cost side. Okay. Now for the quarter, Devyani offered 9 fried chicken prices for 299 rupees. Okay, as epic savers, whatever it is, it offered 2 side dishes and a free Pepsi bottle. ठीक है, मतलब डिस्काउंट दिया है. जो चीज 400 में बिकता है 299 में दिया है और साइड डिशेस और पेप्सी बोतल दे, तो अपने तरफ से कॉस्ट जा रहा है क्योंकि आपको कस्टमर एक्वायर करना है. बट in the starting of the articles you read, the ad spends was also increased. Now two things are there. ठीक है, cost side में there's a higher marketing this thing that has gone up, and there's a discounts and promotional offers has also increased. ठीक है, so there is a cost from your end. You're putting extra cost. 400 रुपए का सामान अगर आप 299 में बेचो, this a cost from your end that you're putting in, right? So even after you're putting that, you're doing a lot of marketing. The revenue spent is this much, but the cost is going on the higher end. There's a red flag in the business, right? Now you understand how you're interpreting the businesses. So heavy discount reduces the effective selling price, pulling margins down. So that is might be a reason that the margins are going down. Again, what is margin? Margin is profit. Profit is a parameter of revenue and cost. The margins are going down, and promotions likely would have cannibalized the full price sales. Very simple, right? Now this is an overview that we are doing from a news article. See, we are not reading lines. We are actually interpreting the business over here, right? See, the core profit margin contracted to 15.1% from 18.3% a year earlier. Now, after making so much this biryani by kilo acquisition, if the revenue has gone contracted to 15.1% from 18.3%, it's a red flag. So what is my interpretation? Rising costs, advertising, promotions, and possibly operations taxes might be a cost over here. How can they reduce? That is the question I want to ask. I'll go deep and understand कि अच्छा मार्केटिंग में स्पेंड कर रहे हैं, कितना स्पेंड कर रहे हैं, क्यों स्पेंड कर रहे हैं, कहाँ स्पेंड कर रहे हैं, ROAS क्या है, रिटर्न ऑन एड स्पेंड क्या है. You can ask this question. You can search for this question. If you're talking to a startup, you can ask this question. Startup might say कि I'm not profitable, but now if you're a smart trader, you're a smart person, you'll ask this good questions to the startup. You ask good questions to the restaurants. Right? So this is how you interpret the businesses. A direct indication that cost increases aren't being absorbed by higher prices of volume that we have discussed, right? So it was a quick summary I wanted to share in the part two where I wanted to cover few aspects. Now we'll use all this knowledge. We'll do some AI agents and chat GPTs and all, and we'll do a series where we are actually interpreting the business very nicely. We'll take on a news article. We'll do some activities, so that my knowledge is also increasing, but less than you are also able to understand things in a very good manner. That's it from my end. Thank you so much.